The Snake River and Radiation Lab has discovered that the hydrogen bonds of some organic molecules provide a capacitor-like field between the covalent hydrogen electrons and the nucleus. Energy from the nucleus is projected through the hydrogen protons and stored in this field. There is a form of radioactive decay which duplicates this capacitor-like exchange between energy from the nucleus and a single hydrogen electron. That form of radioactive decay is known as beta decay. Radioactive beta decay is associated with an isotope of hydrogen known as tritium. The tritium nucleus is composed of the one proton of hydrogen and beta decaying mass. The sum total of beta conversions of neutrons to protons is accompanied by ejections of beta electrons and gamma emissions. This creates a beta capacitor-like field. We can record these beta electrons and gamma emissions using a beta-sensitive Geiger counter. The decay events are time-stamped to determine frequency field exists, because we are able to influence the beta field using an externally applied electrical capacitor field. An external capacitor time-stamped record from the Geiger counter provides the number of beta decay events for every second of the recording. The number of events per second is called the frequency of the decay events. We have grouped the frequency for each second into sets of 4 seconds and calculated the average for each set. Each of these sets is designated as a measure. The height of the bar shows the average frequency for each measure. Notice that the frequencies 220-volt field are much higher than the frequencies of beta events recorded with no field present. The mean or average frequency under the 220-volt external capacitor field is 8.69 Hz. The mean frequency under the capacitor field is 172% of the mean frequency with no field present.
All right. As the previous data graph illustrates, when a beta decaying radioactive material is integrated into the negative pole of a capacitor, the frequency of beta decay events is increased significantly. These beta frequencies are increased in direct proportion to the amount of voltage applied to the external capacitor. The greater the voltage, the greater the frequency increase. Multiple tests demonstrated these increases, and all increases were statistically significant. The field established by beta decaying nuclear masses can be influenced by the field of an external capacitor. If that capacitor field is strong enough in voltage, the beta decaying tritium capacitance field can be completely absorbed into the external capacitor's field. This absorption captures the beta decaying energy and prevents the decay. This beta capture in a capacitor field results in a power gain. Our data indicates that for every 3.67 grams of beta decaying thorium captured by a capacitor field, there will be a 1 megawatt of continuous power output.
A high-voltage nuclear capacitor design was used to test the beta emissions of thorium-234. Thorium-234 is the beta-decaying byproduct of uranium ore. The beta emission were very low level. This was a requirement of the research design, because individual beta events had to be separate and countable. Under appropriate high voltage for the external capacitor, the record of the distribution and rate of beta events with no field present becomes this under a field. The record demonstrates that the high-voltage field has induced thorium-234 to emit 2 different species of beta emissions. It can be seen by the fine structure record that some of the increased discharges are beta discharges, but some of them are only ionic discharges similar to those which produce the electron stream in a cathode tube. The discharges are being replaced from the negative plate of the capacitor as they stream towards the positive plate. We know they have composed an electron stream because they are generating an electrostatic field similar to that produced by cathode tubes.
we're projecting a strong capacitance field in the same way that cathode tubes might project a capacitance field. We were finding that the beta discharges were also crossing a space of separation, entering into the positive terminal in the same way that the television tube works, but it was putting out a capacitance field that was many, many, many times that experienced with a television set. For example, in order to protect our equipment from the 25,000 voltage field that we were using, we had to set the recording computer as far away from the experiment as we could. We had it at least 4 feet away. Yet, when this experiment was being run, this generated a sparking capacitance field in the plastic casing of this computer, such that a spark was jumped across a space of separation about 1/4 of an inch or more into my finger.